Transportation planning, the way we do it in the United States and in this region, is killing us. 32,000 traffic-related fatalities in the US each year. That's 92 people each day. What if we did our transportation planning for 0 fatalities? What if we did our transportation planning and gave us choice so we could get out of traffic? What if, in the Lehigh Valley, we planned for passenger rail to connect us to New York and Philadelphia? Allow me to introduce you to 4 people so that I can illustrate the grave danger we are under. The first is Abby, 11 years old. It's 4 in the afternoon. She's in her little villages downtown. She's with a friend. She goes to cross the main street, and she does what children do. She darts ahead. She doesn't look. There's a car coming down the main street. It's going the speed limit, a little less than the speed limit of 35 miles an hour. There's not enough time to stop. She dies. Her town, our region, and the world join her parents in grieving the enormous loss of this beautiful child. Bruce, 18 years old. Now for me, it's personal. Bruce is my cousin. I'm 15. I'm home alone. It's Sunday. My parents are out shopping. The phone rings. I answer it. It's my uncle. But he sounds sad. There's been a crash. Bruce was coming home the night before from visiting friends, and there was a crash with a truck. He didn't walk away from that crash. There was a closed casket at his funeral. This number, you may wonder, why are these shoes yellow? Johns Hopkins University's School of Public Health did a public awareness campaign on crashes and pedestrian safety, and they collected 3,000 shoes and put them on display after they painted them yellow. And that's what that looked like. What does 32,000 look like? There are 32,000 tiles in this image. We're talking about every year. It's too much to bear. But it literally is the tip of the iceberg. Because driving everywhere, our autocentric planning style is making us sick. And there's lung disease. And so to illustrate the loss of life from lung disease, I introduce you to Blanca, my mother-in-law. She never smoked a pack of cigarettes, a cigarette in her life, and she died of lung cancer. And this morning, as I was preparing, I was remembering I was to take her to the doctor, and she was having trouble breathing, and I went and put my arm around her to comfort her, and she turned blue. I called 911. The paramedics punched a hole in her lung and got her to the hospital. She had 2 weeks to say goodbye to her family. So, lung disease. It turns out, how is it that a person who never smoked is dying of lung disease? It turns out that what's coming out of our tailpipes is really deadly. It's the silent killer. You can't see it, you can't smell it. It's more deadly than what was coming out of the smokestacks years ago because of something called fine particulates. The pollution it's made up of is very small, and it can go deep into our lungs and do very serious damage. Our region is the 14th most polluted in terms of air quality in the country. A friend of mine who has asthma has asked me to explain that she can't always breathe when she's in the Lehigh Valley, but if she leaves the Lehigh Valley, she can breathe okay. We get an F from the American Lung Association for ozone red days. Lung disease claims 230,000 lives every year in the US. So driving everywhere is making us sick, but it doesn't stop there. There's heart disease. Now, not everyone sees the connection between driving and heart disease, but the American Physician General does, and this week he came out with an announcement. And he talked about how our inactive lifestyles are contributing to heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and other diseases. But for purpose of illustration, I will introduce you to Al. You would call him Al. I would call him Daddy. My father was a wonderful man and a really good father, but he believed America rolls on wheels, and he dedicated his life, literally, to that philosophy. He worked 37 years for General Motors. He was an engineer there. And he really liked to drive his car. He would drive his car plenty of places he could walk. We were invited to a barbecue. We all piled into the car. We had to arrive in style. It was 1 block from where we lived. My father had his first coronary when I was 10 years old, and he had the one that killed him when I was 20. He was 59. He collapsed at the office. He never got to see me graduate from college or graduate school. He never walked me down the aisle. He never held his grandchildren in his arms. The loss from our autocentric planning style is enormous. For heart disease claims 611,000 lives a year in this country. And if we add it to the crashes, the lung disease, it gets to be a really big number, 873,000. How do we even get our mind around that? I believe the way to get our mind around it is to only think of one person. And I would ask you, with a number that big, it is probably the case that you have lost someone you love to an auto crash, to lung disease or heart disease. And I would invite you right now to remember that person. This grief we have for the loss of life is so big, but when we experience it personally, we have to put it in a box and put it on the shelf. And I invite you to take that box off the shelf and open it up and remember the person you loved. And join with me and think of their name, put your hand on your heart, and just invite the memory of them into this space. I believe that the depth of the love we feel for the people we've lost in these ways is what will fuel the change which is necessary. So, how did we get here? Who's behind this? A month ago, I heard former Secretary of Transportation Ray LaHood speak, and he said, right behind the NRA, the road building and the trucking lobbies are the second most powerful influence in Washington. And so even though the DOTs often talk about safety as being important, in reality, in the actions that they take, they put the getting the cargo through fast before our safety. The system we have today is working for these lobbies, but it's not working for us and our loved ones. So what do we do next? Well, I have a 2-pronged strategy. First is an idea called Vision Zero, and this started in Europe, but it's come to the US. And mayors all across our country and regions are signing on for this idea, and that is that there are no traffic accidents. There are no traffic accidents. We are planning for these fatalities, and they are happening. And if we want to change it, we need to plan for 0 traffic fatalities. This is a very high bar, but it's also a really intriguing idea. So what's the second part of the strategy? Well, there is an idea called multimodal transportation planning. Now, I know it's a big, complicated phrase, but let's break it down. Multi means many, modal means ways. Many ways of getting there. And you can see in the picture that it accommodates walking on the sidewalk off to the side and somebody in a wheelchair. It accommodates driving, bicycling, there's light rail, there's space for the trucks. Many ways of getting there. There are a couple of names for this, also called smart transportation, transportation choice, complete streets. And if you're taking a regular suburban road and changing it to this, they call that a road diet. So who's going to help us, though? This sounds kind of complicated. Well, it turns out there's another movement called New Urbanism. And these are advocates and elected and appointed officials, architects, landscape architects, fortunately, also traffic engineers, who will help us create places we can love, places we can live, livable communities. And it's a complex problem, but they have experience at it, and whether it's retrofitting an existing town or building a new town out of a greenfield, these are the people who can help us. Now, I'd like to compliment Lower Macungie Township, one of our municipalities. We have 62 in this region. They have done some good planning, and to me it looks like multimodal transportation planning. This is their Hamilton Boulevard Corridor Study, and we have 62 municipalities in the region. I propose that maybe we could just have one design guideline for the region and not ask every single municipality to have their own plan. They might not match up. So we have a mortal danger, and when I think about what would help, I think, gee, wouldn't it be great if there was a superhero? And would it be Batman? Would it be Superman, Wonder Woman? No, I think we need a completely new breed of superhero that we'll call multimodal man and woman. And what will multimodal man and woman look like? Well, you know, the image of a superhero is very muscular and skin-tight clothing and very, you know, commanding presence. And I'm sure that, you know, for those superheroes who are bike commuting, that might be the case, that they would look good in Lycra and have muscular legs. But in fact, multimodal man and woman look like every man. They look like you and me. We need everyone to be our superhero. Now, superheroes have superpowers. And what is the superpower that multimodal man and woman have? I believe it's courage. I believe that the heartbeat that I asked, that you felt when I asked you to put your hand over your heart, is the heartbeat of a superhero. Because to walk into an advocacy space when you have suffered a loss of a child, a parent, a loved one, requires almost superhuman courage, but that's what's necessary. So what do we do now? Well, for Abby, there's a Gofundme campaign. They're trying to raise $20,000 to get those walk, don't walk lights for the intersection where she died. There's a proposal to Borough Council to lower the speed limit from 35 to 25 miles an hour, and PennDOT and the Borough Council are considering that. And certainly all of us, no matter what municipality we live in, we can jump on board for that Vision Zero idea and talk to our mayors and talk to our council people. For Bruce, what can we do? Well, we can certainly advocate for every type of transportation, for sidewalks, for trails that interconnect, you know, that connect to our neighborhoods, for buses that travel more frequently and make our commute time shorter, for light rail, for passenger rail. There is an online petition that a regular citizen started, and almost overnight, there were 2,000 signatures. You could circulate that. You could sign it and circulate it. And if there were 200,000 signatures, imagine the impact that that would have on the decision makers in our region. For Blanca, there's a lot we can do for improving our air quality. Do your share for better air. If you're in a bank drive-through, turn off your engine, don't idle. If you're waiting to pick up a child from school, turn off your engine. There's clean technology for diesel engines. We can carpool. There are many things that we can do for air quality. In honor of my father, what can we do to not have a sedentary lifestyle? Well, it turns out that we can There are many fun and creative ideas. It's a lot of fun to ride your bike to work. You might want to try that. Even if you don't live in a walkable neighborhood, I would propose you could call friends of yours who do and invite them out to dinner. And then, you know, we're Americans, we move a lot. The next time you move, think about moving to a traditional walkable neighborhood like here in downtown Allentown, or there are a number in our region. People say to me, well, what is this going to cost? Who's going to pay for it? The American Physician General, when he made a statement this week, he said 86% of US healthcare costs are attributed to inactive lifestyles. We are already paying for our transportation system with our health. We are already paying for it with the lives of our loved ones and our own lives. And I would ask you, what is it worth to you to not have to buy an automobile for every single person in your household? And baby boomers, as you age, what is your independence worth to you? As your eyesight fails and the possibility exists of you losing your license, do you also want to lose your social life? Do you want to lose your ability to get to the goods and services? What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to continue to advocate for smart transportation. And you can certainly join me in that. But what am I going to do differently? What I'm going to do differently is I'm going to bring these shoes to the table. I'm going to bring these shoes and my story that I haven't talked about for 40 years. And I invite you to bring your shoes and your story, because I think that the love that we have and the grief that we bear for the loss of these people that we loved, it's powerful, and it can change things for us. We can do it together. You can do it for Abby, for Bruce, for Blanca, for Al. You can do it for the people that you lost in your lives. You can do it to save your own neck. But we need to do it together because our lives depend upon it.